And you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hurley, and today we're going to discuss the hurling action this weekend, week 2 of the Leinster and Munster Senior Hurling Championship. So lots of good action to look forward to this weekend. I'm delighted to be joined by the Wexford Hurling Podcast host, Garry Doran, and Ben Burney to talk about this weekend's games involving their own Wexford, of course, against Antrim on Saturday. There's a few good games on Saturday as well. Limerick against Clare in the Gaelic grounds. You have Dublin against Westmeath, and of course that RT2 doubleheader, starting off with Kilkenny against Galway and then Cork against Waterford in the evening game. So first of all, lads, I'll go to you, Ben, first. How you been over the last few days? Tough result for Wexford last weekend, but the championship's back.
Yeah, brilliant to have it back. Like, we've been waiting all year. Like, everyone, the league, everyone just, it's only the league. No one cares. And everyone just, something does need to be done. And when you're just waiting for this championship moment, but at the same time, it doesn't feel right being this time of year. But also, when we're in Wexford, we'd like maybe an extra few weeks to clear up a few injuries. That would be nice. But no, it is great to have back, and looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to Wexford Park this weekend. First home game.
Definitely so. And how are you, Garry? Do you echo Ben's thoughts there about the championship being in April and about Wexford indeed?
Yeah, well, all good for me anyway. But yeah, like when you're in Pearse Stadium, I wouldn't say it's even the warmest place during the summer. So when you're there in April and it's a bit rainy, and we were actually talking to David Connors from the Tomb Herald, and he was saying that that wasn't as bad. Like it wasn't actually a bad day for Pearse Stadium. But look, it's with the league being so dull and from a Wexford perspective quite poor. It was nice to actually have the championship starting instead of waiting around for it.
Yeah, exactly. So, sure, the league was a bit boring, all right, but the championship is back, and back with a bang this weekend, definitely. And we'll start off with the Munster Championship this weekend. Saturday's game, first of all. We have Limerick against Clare, Munster Senior Hurling Championship, Saturday, 7 o'clock on GA Go. So, this is an interesting game after Limerick squeezed past Waterford, really, last week, Sunday. Waterford missed a few opportunities. They actually had more shots than Limerick that day in Thurles. So that was a big win for Limerick to get over. But the performance wasn't particularly great. But when you look at Clare conceding a bucket load of goals against Tipperary, Jake Morris was running amok on them. And eventually they succumbed to defeat in Cusack Park. So it's a big game for Clare, big game for Limerick to gain a bit of confidence in their performance as well. So big game overall, Ben.
It is a big game, huge game. I reckon everyone is saying, listen to a few podcasts, is that, John Kiley would be absolutely delighted because he got the 2 points, but he has a stick to beat them with. But I'd be kind of thinking, they didn't play well and they still won. So is it that really a stick? A lot of players to me be looking at that like and thinking, no, we won. They probably need to look at their discipline. Like, in reality, I think Waterford should have won the game, to be honest. I think when you're 20 minutes to go, similar to Wexford in 2019, when you're 20 minutes to go, you're a man up, you need to use that ball a bit better. Take your scores. But Clare, I've always thought this Clare team is, for the last couple of years, I've thought this Clare team is a bit overrated. And last year, they got lucky in many games. Played well against Limerick, obviously, last year. But looking at last Sunday, they really need to sort out the goalkeeping situation. Is he going to stay with Eamon Foodie, or is he going to go back to Eibhear Quilligan? I know Eibhear Quilligan certainly hasn't been perfect. He dropped one in against Wexford last year. He dropped one in against Tip. Was it last year or the year before? The year they made the big deal about the black card, he dropped one in. But like, if you take away the mistakes there, I think 2 goals he gave away, and the other one for John Conlon, he gave it to a man on the run, and if he won it, he was kind of running over the sideline.
That was John Conlon's fault, though, really, wasn't it?
John Conlon shouldn't have been calling for it where he was anyway, in first place. But I still think it was a poor choice. It was a poor choice to puck out.
I think it's a bit harsh to blame Foodie on that. Now, what I did find interesting was Sean Flynn had an article out during the week that kind of, there were a couple of mistakes, but his puckouts were actually very important for Clare's attack, and I think they got 1-9 off his puckouts. I wouldn't be going back to Eibhear Quilligan after one game. I think you'd ruin Foodie's confidence. But then again, at the same time, is there another mistake in him?
My question would be there, is his confidence ruined already?
Start him and find out.
Yeah, it is harsh to drop a lad after one game. Maybe just go with it. I mean, you started him for a reason in the first place.
Yeah, some interesting points there about the goalkeeper for Clare, and we will talk about it in due course there. But first of all, Gary, I wanted to get on to, this has been a topic of debate in the last few days or so, maybe even the last year or 2 years. Limerick have been a great team, and there's no denying that. Obviously, 3 All-Irelands in a row, going for a 4th, probably going to be one of the greatest teams in history. John Coyote has them well drilled. But the discipline, and you mentioned it at the start of the show, and one of you mentioned at the start of the show anyway, that their discipline needs to be calmed a small bit. Garrett Hakeley obviously got sent off the other night, and the team being announced on Thursday night, he's not in the team against Clare after his red card last Sunday, but Seamus Flanagan does start despite that challenge on Stephen Bennett last Sunday. So there's a few bits of controversial comments about this, including from Buff Egan and a few others as well, about Limerick's discipline. What do you think yourself? Do you think it needs to be calmed a small bit, or are people, going over the top a small bit?
I think people are going over the top with it. I think most of the discipline issues are usually called, like you had William O'Donoghue, didn't he get suspended during the league retrospectively? I think the surprising thing was that Seamus Flanagan didn't get banned after, because I thought that was as clear of a red card as you see. He caught him late in the head and raised the elbow afterwards. I know they're saying that he didn't line him up and go for him, and it happened very fast, but it's still, that's the kind of tackle that you need to give the red card for. They play on the edge, and I think most of the time they're called on it. Other teams play on the edge as well, but because they're not as successful, people don't get as outraged about it. I think a lot of people have been saying, like Kilkenny's team back when they were winning all the All-Irelands, they were tough lads playing on the edge. So I think a bigger deal is being made about it than needs to be, but people are always going to try to cut down the champs. Similar with the hand pass rule, everyone is throwing the ball half the time rather than actually doing proper hand passes, but people get more outrage at Limerick doing it for some reason, just because they're winning.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, right? And that's what I was thinking as well in the last few years. Dublin footballers getting involved with a load of them fouls. You look at the Kerry footballers, you look at the Cork hurlers, even with Dermot Rocco Sullivan, the amount of fouls he was getting involved in. So, what do you think about that, Ben? Do you echo Gary's thoughts, or do you think Limerick are completely a dirty team?
First of all, on the hand passing, I completely agree with Garry. On the other situation, I think they probably are a dirty team. What Hegarty got the second yellow for, that's probably a red card in itself. I think maybe the Flanagan one is a little blown out of proportion. Kind of think he's so close and it's just clumsy. But they are. I think that the refs need to properly, make call. Remember Gillan a couple of years ago got away with fault.
It's when they get away with it is the issue.
When they get away with it, yeah. Well, I think it's a problem in the GAA, that lads can assault someone, they get retrospectively banned or whatever, and then there's no upper. Oh, let the lads play. But did you endangered an opponent? In the GAA, they need to properly look at these issues. Have a proper disciplinary procedures, because the way it is now, lads seem to get away with it, and referees aren't backed up. If the referee makes a decision and then it's said on the Sunday game that a pundit thinks, oh, that wasn't a red card, there's uproar then, and he somehow gets off most of the time.
whinging. Look at Clare last year with Rory Hayes and John Conlon. First of all, it
Clare
was
are big whingers.
Yeah.
The question I would ask is, if you remember, just in the league, Kyle Hayes and William O'Donoghue got retrospectively banned for a league game, I think, right? If that happens in a semi-final, Munster final, or just before a final, I'd be very surprised if those bans were brought in then. You'd have to nearly murder someone, I'd say, to get banned before an All-Ireland final.
You might get banned, but it'll be overturned. It'll be brought to the CCCC, and there'd be something brought in to get them off.
The CCCC, and we'll postpone your ban till the Walsh Cup next year.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of a farce. Yeah, Clare outrage last year with the two for like Rory Hayes bursting Jamie Flanagan twice in the back with his hurl, and Clare were outraged that he got banned for that, and yet they'll call for the Limerick lads to get banned for their off the ball stuff.
Clare have perfected the siege mentality.
Yeah, a bit of whataboutery.
Yeah, again, some interesting points there about Limerick, and hopefully the CCCC, do their job later on down the summer, and the right punishments will be given out to the Limerick players. But again, it's blown out of proportion, really, about Limerick over the last few seasons. Really, they're a brilliant side. A lot of sides have done it before. They might be a dirty team, but I definitely agree with Gary's point there about other teams doing it, and Limerick shouldn't be punished on social media as they are, really. But just on Clare, small, but Garry, start with you. 3-12 to 2-11 at half time against Tipperary. The game was nearly gone at half time, and this was a Clare team that reached the All-Ireland semi-final last year, pushed Limerick all the way to extra time in the Munster final. And there's kind of the argument going around social media that Clare kind of, one year they perform excellent, but then the next year they flatter to deceive. Do you agree with that? Do you think the same will happen to Clare this season?
There's no doubt that Clare have some outstanding hurlers, like Tony Kelly, obviously, who was very quiet at the weekend, but Aidan McCarthy back this year from injury. Like they did do so well last year, and without him, but they are very hot and cold. Like I wouldn't be convinced with Brian Lohan. I know he's like the darling of Clare and stuff, but I don't get the Davy Fitz hate and the Brian Lohan love, because I think they're both very similar. Is they're both very odd characters, but yeah, I've somehow they'll still come third and end up beating Wexford in the quarter final this year. But realistically, I don't see him getting out of Munster. That tip game was so important for them in Ennis, and now they need to go to the Gaelic grounds to play Limerick. Like I don't see him getting anything from that Limerick game, and then they're just under serious pressure for the last two games. But look, they have the hurlers. Like even they were down. They had conceded the 3 goals early in the first half, and they came back with 2 quickfire goals to be still in it at halftime. Like they have the hurlers that can change a game. Rogers' one of his goals was outrageous. The turn and strike that he got off it. Tony Kelly, Aidan McCarthy. They have the hurlers to do it. I don't see him beating Limerick, and they're in a lot of trouble then.
And what do you think about that? Yourself being like, it kind of is a bit harsh and clear. If they lose this weekend at the road, like Cork lost the first 2 games in Munster last year and still got out of the group. So, like, even if they lose on Saturday, it's still possible for them to get out of the group, especially with the brilliant hurlers that Garry just mentioned there.
Oh, of course, they have great chance. Even if they lose, they still have a brilliant chance. Yeah, you have to imagine that everyone is going to lose to Limerick. The team with the best chance, I don't know who they have in the last game. The team with the best chance to beat Limerick is probably whoever it is they have in the last game, because Limerick might make a few changes before that game and not want to get any injuries, But no, Clare have brilliant hurlers. Tony Kelly was surprisingly quiet the other day. He can't do it every day, I suppose, but well looked after by Carl Barrett. I'd wonder, is that just an off day, or is he just not on form? Will he not have a great year? you know. But they definitely have the possibility to win those two last games without a doubt.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought
Limerick,
there.
Limerick played Cork on the last one. Sorry.
That's what I was checking, yeah. So, but it's on the Gaelic grounds.
Yeah, in the Gaelic grounds, yeah. So it won't be easy for Cork regardless. And Tipperary, Waterford, and a Clare bye. So Clare have Cork in Ennis the second last round, and they're away in Thurles against Waterford then. Now, Brian Lohan does have a good record against Davy Fitz in their head-to-heads. I'm not sure if the media can continue to make a big deal about their rivalry.
They probably will make some way about it, you know, just to have that headline story or something like that, definitely. But for this particular game, lads, I'd assume you're predicting a Limerick win for this game. I think divine intervention will just prevent it, really.
I'm going Limerick, and I don't know what the handicap is, but I've been thinking Limerick 6+, 7+. I think they'll be comfortable.
Yeah, I'd agree with Garry. I think, you know, they have such a squad, Limerick. They are going to, and they're close neighbours as well. They want to kind of put that. Clare people have been bigging this up that they're the only team. I think Limerick would love to put that to bed.
There you go. Both Limerick wins there.
Having said this, David Fitzgerald being back is actually huge for Clare.
Yeah, he was a huge loss at the weekend, actually. I mean, and what a silly red card to get. Or was that retrospective action as well? No, it was a red card. That they were outraged at, even though he punched Downey in the head.
Jeez, the way this podcast is going, lads, I'd say we'll be talking about bands for the whole show now. But,
do you have much of a Clare following? They might not tune in to us too often.
We just like to see a bit of consistency and actual procedures put in place to ban lads or don't ban lads. But this appeals process seems to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it does, all right. And it is a topic of discussion for the GA, but in terms of the game itself, yeah, I'd say Limerick will win it as well. And Limerick hammered Clare the league as well, with Donegal Dalek scoring one of the goals that night. And Clare were absolutely, kiboshed that night as well. So it could be a similar story this time for Limerick, and in the same stadium in the Gaelic grounds as well. So you'd have to expect Limerick to pull through in the game. But the other game in Munster, hopefully, will be, tighter affair. Cork against Waterford in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at 4:00 on RT2. This is an interesting game, lads, because Waterford definitely put the cat amongst the pigeons last week with the performance against Limerick. Cork, obviously, their first game after they got a bye last weekend. Bit of an up and down league for Pat Ryan's side, it's fair to say, but Waterford coming off the back of a decent performance against Limerick. If you just disregard the shooting, they had 35 shots overall, but still managed to lose against Limerick. So, first of all, Ben, how do you see this game going?
This one is a little harder because we haven't seen Cork really in the league. They seem to put out a lot of different teams. This one is really hard to predict. Waterford obviously look good, but does a tough game against Limerick, does that help them because they're championship ready? They know they're at the standard. Or does it help Cork because they're going to be more fresh? It's so hard to know where Cork are going to be, How many times have we seen a Cork team just fall flat? Like, what? Judging on the league, I'd have to go at Waterford. I know there's no doubt Cork have the hurlers and they have the hurlers on the bench. They probably have the hurlers on the extended panel. Hurlers everywhere, but just judging on the performance from Waterford last week, they put it up against maybe the greatest team of all time, and the unknown is coming from Cork, and they're probably championship ready. The thing thrown at Cork a lot of the time is that they're not ready for the tough stuff or whatever, but Waterford are definitely going to bring that, and having a game under their belts, I think, is what's going to bring them through.
And what do you think yourself, Garry? Like Cork, interesting enough league. They named a few different teams, as Ben rightly said there. Look at their scores of the campaign, 25 different scores as well. And Patrick Organ was out injured in the middle of the league campaign as well. You'd have to think he'd be back. Hopefully he'll be back for the weekend anyway, because it seems like only Shane Kingston's really taken up the mantle for Cork in regards to scoring other than Patrick Organ. So like it's going to be a weird one for Cork, seeing them in Championship hurling for the first time in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, he's both alluded to it. They're the unknown, and I guarantee you that Davy hates how unknown it is now. Maybe he probably has a better idea of what the starting team than we might. But I'd say, like, he had a plan for the Limerick game, and he likes to have a plan for all these games. And he didn't get a chance to look at Cork, whereas Cork have had a chance to get a look at Waterford. So that's I think advantage Cork. I think this is a huge game, because I think Tipperary, after getting the win over Clare and looking so good at the moment, I think they're favourites to come out of Munster with Limerick at the moment. And I think the other team is going to be the winner of this game. So it's a huge game. Would you expect a big crowd now in Park of Queen for it?
Decent enough crowd, I'd say. I'd say it'd be decent enough. Like I'd say the two terraces might be empty, but I'd say the two stands would be absolutely rocking.
I mean, I think Cork will probably need as many people there as possible to build them up, because Cork are the kind of hot streak team that once they have momentum, they can put you away. And I think they'll absolutely need every bit of help to get over the Waterford team, and it'll be huge if they can. But yeah, like Patrick Horgan had such a kind of quiet year last year, in and out of the team, and then Pat Ryan's first game in the league this year, he started and he was class, but then he was injured and missed the rest of the league. So you'd want to see him back and starting. And I think, Cork had, similar to Wexford, they had a lot of injury trouble during the league, but maybe it wasn't a bad thing, because it gave Pat Ryan a chance to look at the younger lads and to test out new players and change different positions. So yeah, they're the unknown at the moment. They're the only team that hasn't played, and yeah, there'll be a lot will be told in that game.
Is there news on Robbie O'Flynn?
I don't think he's coming back.
No.
Or for the next few weeks anyway. That was a serious injury he got against Limerick. So, and he is a crucial player. He's going to be a big miss.
And how about Mark Coleman?
Brilliant player.
Don't think so either. No. So it's going to be difficult to see how they come back in. You have to think Kieran Joyce is going to step up there at centre back. Like Tim O'Mahony, you don't know where Tim O'Mahony's actually going to start as well. Like he started in the forward line last season. He was in midfield sometimes as well. He played so well for his club in midfield, and he played so well in defence in previous games as well. So it's the unknown with Cork. You don't know what way they're going to line out. You don't know what attitude they're going to have. And speaking of attitude as well, I think some pundit mentioned this on the Sunday game after the Kilkenny League semi-final, that Cork's attitude was all wrong in that game. And Kilkenny eased the victory that day in Nowlan Park as well. So could that be a worry for Cork if they're just not on it from the first minute? Waterford could take full advantage.
I'd give the league nothing this year. Like, I don't think it matters. Attitude is something that you want to have for every game, but when it comes to championship, it's just a different story. And I wouldn't worry too much about what happened in the league. I would worry about the first 10 minutes, and I think you will see the attitude there in the first 10 minutes. But again, if the two stands in Park of Queen are packed and there's a big crowd cheering them on, and they get a quick, they will start at 100 miles an hour. If they can get the scores on the board, it'll carry him. It'll help him to keep going. And it's how Waterford react to it. Again, as I said, Davey's going to hate the unknown of. He's meticulous in his planning. He likes to have all the plans on who's going to take who and what they're going to do, and he likes to be so controlling of that. And like, it could be confusing for the Waterford players if they don't know what they're doing or where they're going. If they're told, like, oh, if he's here, you pick him up, and if he's here, you pick him up, and the unknown.
The thing is as well, like from a Waterford point of view, Toy de Borker went off injured after 20 minutes against Limerick, and I counted he had 4 interceptions or turnovers in the first 20 minutes. He was immense in those. He was nearly man of the match, and he only played 20 minutes of the game, and he goes off injured. Davy says his year is over now. So, Ben, is that a huge loss for Waterford? I know it's a huge loss, but will this be a huge loss this weekend more so, because this normally would be a winnable game for the Daisha?
Of course, it's a huge loss. He's been a brilliant player whenever he's been fit, really. Unfortunately, he did his cruciate twice a few years ago, so he's after missing 2 years already. It's a shame he's going to miss another year. I don't know if he's going to come back. I mean, a lot of players haven't, done an injury like that. A serious injury again might just say, I've had enough of this, my body's not able for it anymore. But of course, it's going to be a huge loss, particularly in the way, like if you remember 2020, Cork and Waterford, Liam Call's first game in charge, and he was absolutely brilliant that day. Wherever Cork hit the ball into the forward line, they seemed to be looking to pick out Tadhg de Burka. So, although I can't remember who was it replaced him, who came on in his role.
So look now. I think it was Tom Barron was the guy that came on.
Tom Barron, like, there's no way he's as good in that role as Tadhg de Burka, but Waterford still managed to do quite well and should have won the game regardless. But he's just gonna be a big loss. It's gonna be easier for Cork when the Cork player, centre back, looks up, where's he going to put the ball? It's going to be easier to pick out a man when he knows that Tadhg de Burka is so good at minding that D and getting in to help his cornerbacks and wing backs, He's going to be a huge loss for Waterford, but I think they have the strength in depth to get there without him.
You'd imagine Ozzy Gleeson be back starting too, wouldn't you?
He did pretty well the last day when he came in.
I think like
hamstring, isn't he?
Huh?
He's only coming back from a hamstring.
I think on form he's almost unplayable, but again he has his problems with discipline and not being on form all the time.
And the thing is with Waterford, I was going to ask one of you about this. I'll ask you this, Garry. 13 wides for Waterford the last day against Limerick. I know they applied the pressure. They did excellent against Limerick in so many facets of play. But that would annoy Davy Fitzgerald during the week, definitely. Like 13 wides. And it was such a big opportunity to beat Limerick at the same time as well.
Yeah, it'll absolutely annoy him. And look, even with Wexford last year, we had some matches where we racked up huge amount of wides. And it's so frustrating, especially when you work so hard to get the shot and there's one that should be scored, and the Stephen Bennett free from the 21 that ended up being saved. Like in a game of such small margins, they're huge moments in the game and they can change the momentum of the game. And especially when you're the man up, sometimes it was the wrong decision to shoot. Sometimes it was just a poor shot, but your scoring efficiency needs to improve. If you're in the fire pit of Munster, you can't get away with that again. Like they still nearly got a result against Limerick with that, but like you can't rely on it. It needs to improve. And I'd imagine they'll have been working on it during the week.
Geez, if they haven't been working on it, I'll be extremely worried, to be honest. But I think Ben is pretty set in his prediction that Waterford will win the game and provide an ambush there. But what do you think about the game yourself, Garry? Do you think Cork would win at home, or would you agree with Ben there?
I really don't know, but I'd edge towards Waterford. I'd be edging towards Waterford, yeah. If I was being made to make a prediction, I'd go Waterford.
Is there a stat in Munster, actually? That's what I want to see. Is there a stat that a team in the first round always has a bye? So I'm just interested to see, does that affect it? Like, is it usually that the team who got the bye loses in the second round?
I was listening to the Hurling pod, Will O'Callaghan, the off the ball one, and they were talking about how it's such a nice position for Tipperary now as well, because they have their win and they're playing. They have a week off now to recover, and they get to watch Cork and Waterford play, two teams that they still have to play, but Cork especially. Cork will have been putting all their focus on this first game against Waterford. Tipperary obviously for their first game against Clare, but now Tipperary have 2 weeks to prepare for Cork, and they get to have a look at Cork and see how they line out. So it's another reason why it's so important for Cork to get a result.
It is,
Big
yeah,
home.
and,
The home games are so important.
they are, yeah. And even the fact that Waterford have no home games, and that's why everybody was tipping them to finish bottom of the Munster group. So it just tells you how much home games are important. I didn't expect actually the two of you to say Waterford win the game, especially with the game on Park Key, but
I reckon one of the reasons people are tipping Waterford to finish bottom is because of hatred of Davy Fitz, to be honest. They're not even thinking about actually objectively, just like, I don't like that guy.
No, for me it's the unknown. Like I'm not going by the league. Cork had some good games in the league and some poorer games in the league, but I'm not going by the league. And I was impressed with Waterford last weekend, so that's it for me.
I've tipped Waterford, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Cork go out and beat them by 20 points.
Same. And Ben, for your stat, last year Clare had to buy the first round and they bet Tip in Thurles the second round.
I had a check there that now I'm not sure that goes with my theory because Tip just lost to everyone last year. And they sacked their manager who they'd given a 3-year term to.
Oh yeah. It's a pretty yeah. It's unbelievable to think of it that way. But in terms of the game itself, I'd edge towards Cork. Maybe it's a bit of Cork biases in myself, but I'm gonna go Cork because they're at home. But then again, like it's the unknown with this Cork team, and the unknown with this game in particular. And Waterford could easily come to the park and beat Cork by 10 points. We'll have to see what happens on Sunday. It should be a very, very interesting game. And moving from my county to your county, lads, the second Leinster Championship game for Wexford, and it is at home at Chadwick's Wexford Park against Antrim, 6 p.m. on Saturday. Question to you, Ben, first of all. Are you nervous about this game considering how comprehensive Galway beat you, and number two, how Antrim performed against Dublin last Saturday?
I am nervous about the game. I think Antrim are coming with belief. It'll be the first time in a long time coming down to Wexford Park where they probably think they can do something. Probably, I'm not sure the Wexford people have great belief in the team right now. That will help Antrim. Depending on who gets to play, like, is Lee Chin going to play this weekend? Is Damien Reck going to play this weekend? We don't know. But I still think we'll have enough to do it, I think home venue, Antrim having to travel down, like, that's a long trip. That doesn't help. I think I'm nervous, and I would be nervous if Antrim really nervous and worried if Antrim get a good start. But I think we have a lot of good hurlers, and if Damien Reck doesn't start, probably Conor Foley will start again. He'll come on more for his game last week. No, unless they decide to leave him at the under-20s, but I don't think they will. I think a lot of extra people will be worried, but I think probably Antrim could actually be deflated after going so close to a historic victory and just to lose it at the end. So Antrim could be deflated, and then next week they have to go an away game to Wexford.
Yeah, that's the way. That's what I was thinking as well. That if Antrim had have got the win against Dublin, then they're coming down and they're confident and they've got momentum. But that draw, whereas it's a great result for them, that feels like a loss because the win was in their grasp. And the travelling down, I'm confident that Wexford will. I think that Wexford will win comfortably. I think it is a big game for Wexford, and there should not be any complacency. Not after the way things have been going so far, and with the injuries. But I just think in Wexford Park, we have the advantage there. I'm expecting, like, Rory O'Connor hasn't got a lot of hurling. He'll have, same as Conor Foley, getting the 70 minutes into him of championship hurling last week against Galway. Rory O'Connor as well. I think he'll come on a lot. I think he was very well marked by Jack Grealish, but he'll have that fraction of a second more time, I think, on the ball to be able to do things with it. And when he has time, that little bit more time on the ball, he can make it sing. So I'd be expecting a big result or a big performance from Rory O'Connor, and I'm confident that Wexford will get out with a win, and I'm hoping it'll be comfortable.
It was interesting there that Ben was talking about the injuries there, Gary, about Wexford group, about Damien Rick in particular, and Lee Chin as well. And I see Lee Chin on the TV anyway on GA Go when I was watching the live stream that they were getting him ready to come on. And then Gary Egan told him to sit down again. I wonder, was he thinking about the Antrim game next week and he thought the Galway game was gone? Or what do you think about that yourself? The Lee Chin was going to be safe for a game that's more winnable, more or less?
I don't know. So, like, we heard he was down to start, and we heard about half an hour before throw-in that he was out with a shoulder injury. It's seemingly his AC joint. So I assume it's heavily strapped as well. He did the full warm-up with the team. Like, he was togged out and he had the helmet on. He did the team talk before, obviously because he's captain. And then vice-captain Damien Rick was also injured. I think Rory O'Connor's the other vice-captain, so he was probably captain for the day. But yeah, in the first half, he went to warm up. And in the second half, he went to warm up. And he could have been warming up for about 15 minutes. And I don't know whether it was that moment when the penalty was saved. Wexford were 5 points down, I think. And then Galway went down and scored a quick fire 3 points. And was at that stage that Darry Egan thought, look, we'll just take the loss here, and we'll get another week of recovery into him, and hopefully he'll be all right for the Antrim game. So look, the team should be named probably soon enough, and we'll know if he's named in it. Then does he start? We don't know. Losing people before games is far from ideal.
I reckon if that's a 3-point game in the second half, I reckon he comes in.
So you don't think he'll start?
Against Galway.
Yeah, against
Galway.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the same thought process is for this weekend. And we kind of think if we need him, we'll use him against Antrim, but have him right. Because as most people think that it's going to be between Wexford and Dublin. So maybe he'll think about that game to save him for.
I think Wexford are very lucky that we don't need to go to Corrigan Park this year.
Yeah.
Because I do think Antrim in Corrigan Park are a different proposition. I don't know what it is. I haven't been to Corrigan Park, so I don't know what it is about the stadium. It's in an estate somewhere. I heard Malky Clerkin talking about it as it being very unintimidating, and he couldn't understand why teams struggle so much there. But that's where Antrim gets results. They've drawn with Wexford there. Did they draw or beat Clare there? They got the draw against Dublin. So that they can get results, and with Wexford with the injuries, we would not like to be going up there. But I just think in Wexford Park that we'll be okay. And yeah, as Ben alluded to, maybe Lee Chin stays on the bench at the start, and he's only used if we need him. Would that be complacent in itself? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if Lee Chin starts indeed. But just before we leave this game, because I think we're all going for a Wexford win comfortably enough to slow Antrim challenging Dublin last week. Like Seamus Brady actually mentioned this on Play on GA about Antrim's home form. You mentioned there as well that they beat Clare, they drew against Wexford, they almost won against Dublin, they challenged Kilkenny for large parts of the league, they challenged Cork in the championship there last year, and then their away form it seems to plummet. So what do you think of that being? Do you think like it's crucial that Antrim do well in their home games to survive in the Leinster Championship and then let the away games off the leash more or less?
Well, it's crucial for every team to win their home games. You know, it's crucial to win with your home fans. Obviously, they probably want to be a bit more competitive away from home, but like it's a long trip up there, and it's a long trip from them to go to anywhere else. You know, if you look at the map of all the hurling teams, like it's almost Ireland is nearly split in two. You know, and then there's Antrim up here. Like it is, so that's it. I reckon there has to be more to it than just travel, like, you know, just the annoyance of traveling, because teams have to travel all the time, but they're not good travelers. I remember a couple of years ago we actually spoke, thinking that they might give Dublin a rattle in the championship a couple of years ago, and Dublin bet them by 20 points or something that year. I think it was a neutral venue. Maybe it was in Dublin, I can't remember, but no, it is crucial, but the home games are crucial for everybody. Absolutely everyone. So it's nothing different there. Maybe they have a bit more of a disparity in their results at home and away.
And it's interesting. I was looking at their fixtures there, Antrim there just now. They're away to Galway and Westmeath, and obviously Wexford coming up, and they're at home to Kilkenny. So by that logic, they could be in trouble even with Westmeath performing poorly, like going down to Mullingar even. Like even with Antrim's good performance against Dublin last weekend, they could easily be in trouble if they're not careful.
They could, and I mean, at the moment, they're probably still targeting third place. Well, yeah, they're targeting Wexford, getting a win in Wexford Park, and an off-form, injury-ravaged Wexford, and you know they win that, and they're looking at trying to get third place, but they lose that, and yeah, as you say, this is survival time. We need to go to Mullingar and we need to get a result here, because that great performance and draw against Dublin means absolutely nothing if Westmeath go and beat them in Mullingar, and there's nothing easy about going to Mullingar to play Westmeath either.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how Antrim develop in the next few weeks. And obviously, we're all going for a Wexford win. And happily for you lads, it'll be 2 points on the board at least. But we're going on to the next game. And this is more of a foregone conclusion, more or less, that people have generally predicted during the week. Dublin against Westmeath in Parnell Park, Saturday at 6 p.m. Like, I know Dublin performed poorly against Antrim last weekend, but having seen Westmeath lose 29 points to 7 against Kilkenny, you'd have to expect Dublin to win this game, don't you, Ben?
Yeah, you couldn't really choose Westmeath to win, you know. Home game as well for Dublin in Parnell Park. Their home ground. Dublin still have a lot of good hurlers. Keane O'Sullivan with 6 points from play the last day. Westmeath have to offer more, though. That's the only thing. I mean, 7 points. Wexford weren't happy with 2-12. And then Westmeath come away with 7 points. You know, I think a performance and a decent showing on the scoreboard will be what Westmeath are looking for, as opposed to any real belief of winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, only scoring 7 points is demoralising. Even if you're going to get a big beating, at least if you put up a decent score, it's not as bad. Like, even for the people that are at the match, there's a little bit more to cheer for. But like for the Westmeath fans that might have travelled to Nowlan Park, they had 7 times where they might have been able to give a bit of a clap to their lads for a score.
But not everyone saves a penalty from TJ Reid.
No, that's true.
What's the name of the Westmeath goalkeeper?
Jeez, I think, what's his name? I have a feeling it's someone like Egerton. I'm not entirely sure now, but I have to see. But anyway, we are expecting that Westmeath obviously succumb to defeat Dublin. But Dublin, very interesting team, all right. Like Keane O'Sullivan, obviously 6 points the last day. But some Dublin fans are actually unhappy with their performances over the league campaign and against Antrim, obviously last week, where arguably they should have lost. So is there cause for concern for Dublin, do you think, Garry, or are they going over the top a small bit?
I think there's definitely cause for concern because they had a good first game against Waterford, I think, in the league. But new management, Matty Kenny, things had kind of gone stale under him, and new management's come in, and there's a lot of changes as well. But they need results. I mean, this is a big game for them. They need a win, but I think they probably need a comfortable win to kind of settle them a little bit. I mean, from a Wexford perspective, it's great to see that they're struggling a bit because we need to go up and face them in Croke Park, hopefully after beating Antrim this weekend, and that will be a huge match for us to make sure we get out of Leinster. So from a Wexford perspective, they can suffer all they like. But I mean, when you have hurlers like Donald Burke, that man can come away with 212, 110 nearly every game. He probably one of his lowest scoring games against Antrim, and he still managed to get the goal that ended up sealing he scored 1-9 at the same time, but he got the goal that ended up sealing bringing back the draw, recovering the draw. But they have a lot of work to do. It's a big job for Cunningham.
They are. O'Donoghue.
Michael O'Donoghue. Sorry.
Yeah, they are in a bit of transition though. They lost a good few players, to retire, and so they are in a bit of transition. And I'm not sure if they have the players coming through. Maybe they do, but probably get lost to the footballers, unfortunately. Fortunately for us, but.
At the same time, they reached an under-20 final, I think, a few years ago. I think it was 21. It was definitely the year 2021, but I'm not sure was it the 2020 championship where they played Cork there. I know Cork.
Yeah. It was the 2020 championship in 2021, I think.
Yeah, they did. But am I wrong in saying their best player on that team was Lee Gannon, who plays with the senior footballers now?
Yeah, you're right, yeah. Case point there. Unfortunately, from a Dublin point of view there, but I just checked the Westmeath goalkeeper's Noel Connolly, so fair play to him for saving that penalty from TJ Reid, and hopefully there's more exploits from your point of view. Definitely that Westmeath put off a result against Dublin, but we'll have to see what happens on Saturday. And the last game this weekend is a bit of a mouth-watering one. Well, it could have been a bit of a mouth-watering one if Brian Cody's staying on as Kilkenny manager. It is the Cats against Galway, 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. should I say, RT2 in Nowlan Park on Sunday. Big enough game, like Derek Lyng playing against Henry Shefflin, obviously teammates in that great 4-row Kilkenny team back in the day. So it's going to get feisty on the sideline despite the no presence of Brian Cody, Ben.
I think both managers will be behaved quite well. I think there'll be a handshake before the game. There might even be a handshake at the end of the game. And if there's a word in between, I don't think it'll be. I think it's all going to be okay. But I am interested to see, like, Galway weren't overly impressive against Wexford. For 15 minutes in the second half, they were. Evan Nowlan was impressive. Kilkenny, I know you think, Kilkenny, but this is still... It's still an unknown Kilkenny, really. They beat Westmeath, who didn't offer much. And Derek Lyng, is he going to sink or swim, We don't really know. I mean, we've seen before in other sports where a manager who's there for so many years and a new guy comes in and it's like a poison chalice, to make the example of Man United. But so it will be interesting to see what kind of Kilkenny we see. Like league final, I know they beat Cork and had a decent league, but they didn't look up when they were up to much against Limerick in the final. So that will be interesting. TJ's back, obviously, played the last game, so he's a big addition. But it's going to be a really interesting game just to see where both teams are.
I'm also wondering, is there going to be any element of shadow boxing? Because I think the arrogance of the after Galway beat Wexford, I think Kilkenny probably have just an earned arrogance. They probably expect each other to play in the Leinster final again, and like Galway have a ridiculously good record in the round robin in Leinster. I think they've 11 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. Yet they haven't won a Leinster final, I think, since 2018. So, like, they can beat Kilkenny in the round robin as much as they like, but they want to win the Leinster title, even though Leinster doesn't mean as much to them. They want silverware, and that's your route to an All Ireland semi as well. Your easiest route to an All Ireland semi final.
I don't think Kilkenny are going to be shadowboxing now.
Yeah, you're probably right. And they probably can't afford to be.
Yeah, I don't think so. Now, maybe it's me talking a bit too positively about Wexford, but we have a great record against them in the last couple of years. We beat them in Nowlan Park last year. The game is in Wexford Park this year. So I think they'd like to have that sewn up before the last game, you know?
Yeah, especially if Wexford can put a run together, playing Antrim, beat them, Dublin, Westmeath. If Wexford got 3 wins in a row and we're inviting Kilkenny into Wexford Park, and maybe some of those injuries from Wexford are all back, you know, being optimistic here from a Wexford point of view, but you know, there could be a Leinster final in it for Wexford. So Kilkenny can't afford to slip up against Galway.
Yeah, and I don't think either team, like, there's no way Derek Lyng in his first real competitive game, I think, is going to say, no, lads, we'll hold off. Could he be that confident that he's going to win the other games, you know? Henry, after getting the win against Wexford, he probably has his win. So maybe if there's any shadowboxing, I reckon it would be from Galway.
Jeez, there you go. Instead of talking about handshakes, we're talking about shadowboxing. Who'd have thought it? But I was going to ask you this, Garry, like, about Kilkenny. Like, we talked about TJ Reid coming back in. Like, there's been some excellent performances from Dark Harkin, who's in the midfield, who's really impressed me. Like Mikey Butler over the last year or so. But the introduction since the league of Adrian Mullen, 6 points from play the other day against Westmeath or something like that. That's an incredible scoring tally, and he was one of the best players, in my opinion, anyway, of the All Ireland Championship last season. So, how important is it to have him back in the fold for Kilkenny?
It's huge. I mean, he said last year, I'm assuming he got the All-Star, but like he did. He was scoring 3, 4, 5 points from play in almost every game, and he starts this year's championship with 6 points from play. Like, if you're getting that from whether he's midfield or wing forward, kind of going deep, like they're usually all scores from range too. Like, it's such an addition to your team when you have a player like that. Like, you have the likes of Owen Cody inside who's capable of big scores. Martin Keoghan, I think he was a sub and he only came in and got 2 points, but there's goals in him too. John Donnelly got 4 points. When you have scores, like, it's something that Wexford are kind of lacking at the moment, because we don't have lads who all over the field that can get 3, 4, 5 points from play. So those players, when you have them in their team, like they're just gold to have. Especially, and then you've got your TJ Reid as well, and they were missing Billy Drennan. I don't know what his story is, whether he could be back, but I was actually interested to see would TJ just come in as a straight replacement for him, because Billy Drennan was top scorer in the league, but like predominantly from place balls. But would it be harsh then to drop him after doing so well in the league just because TJ was back? So it'd be interesting to see. Like, Kilkenny, they're not short of depth, because they've got 2 or 3 players from that under-20 team that are pushing for starting places on the senior team too.
He got a bit of an injury, Billy Drennan. I'm not sure how long he's out for now, but he did get a bit of an injury.
He did, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how long he is out for, maybe for the rest of the round robin. But like, we talk about Kilkenny stars, but Galway have their own diamond, and one particular forward's performance in the last game against Wexford was exceptional. Evan Nowlan, 15 shots, 13 points, 87% shot accuracy. He was absolutely incredible that day. He scored 7 points for play, Ben. So, like, he's another guy to keep an eye on Sunday.
Yeah, I reckon I reckon Mikey Butler is probably the man for him. He's the go-to man mark for Kilkenny, all-star. Evan Nowlan, yeah, he's been the kind of player who underage, you always see, you look at the scores of a Galway under-20 game or Galway minor team, Evan Nowlan, he'd always be racking up the scores. And he kind of just wasn't making it in senior. He was on and off the team for whatever reason.
I think, didn't David Connor say that was only his second or third start for Galway?
Something like that, yeah. But this could be just his breakout year, you know. Because I actually thought he was going to take on good get better, and then it didn't appear last year that Henry fancied him. So maybe he just had to convince Henry. And now maybe he has convinced Henry and he could go on and have a brilliant year, because there's no doubt he has the hurling ability. Absolutely no doubt. You've seen it, you know, for Fitzgibbon as well, like brilliant player. So we'll see, but I reckon he'll be looked after fairly closely now at the weekend.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had Cyril Farrell on a few years ago on our podcast, and he was Evan Nowlan. This was his first or second year in the panel, and we were asking him about him, and he just thought that no, he'd be ate up by the Wexford backs. Paddy Foley and Matt O'Hanlon, they'd eat him up because he was too light. But he's like, his conditioning has improved even so much since in the last 2 years that's standing to him now as well, where he won't be pushed around or bullied around or ate up by defenders. Like he can look after himself, and he's big lads beside him too.
He seemed to just get himself in a lot of space at the weekend. Like he seemed to get a lot of hand passes in space. So maybe his movement has improved. But he will be. There's often been a case, if you remember years ago when Carl Mannion was starting out corner forward, I think he scored 2-3 in a game, and all of a sudden next game he comes up against Paul Murphy, and Paul Murphy is just dogs him for the whole game. So he's going to have to come up against something like that the weekend. I reckon the fella who's on him is not going to do much hurling, I think.
That'll probably be better the week, definitely. That the fella on Evan Nowlan won't be showing his silky skills at all. Just stick on him and stick to him like glue. But it's interesting to know, actually, Galway, you mentioned the Leinster form. Like the last game in Nowlan Park, in the round robin at least, between the two sides, Galway actually won the game. I think they scored 3 goals that day in 2019. So, and that was the year actually Galway went out of Leinster. So, could the same happen again this year? We'll have to see. By that, but like interesting prediction here, lads. So what are you thinking? You thinking Kilkenny to win in Nowlan Park, or can Galway repeat the dose from 2019?
I'm going to call it a draw. There's lots of draws in the Leinster Championship. Yeah, the Leinster Championship usually serves up lots of draws. We even had Dublin and Antrim last year. Like Wexford have I think 5 wins, 5 draws, and 3 or 4 losses. Like there's just a lot of draws. So I think Kilkenny and Galway to play out a draw. Shadow boxing.
I am gonna go with.
Take your time.
Yeah, it's a big decision.
Who do you want to win?
I'm gonna go Galway. I'm going to say the know-how that Henry has going into Nowlan Park is going to get him over the line. You know, and I reckon Galway will improve. Kilkenny probably only just had a practice match last week. Maybe when I was talking about their being championship ready, maybe Galway have had a game. Though some people argue they hadn't. And Kilkenny definitely didn't.
So pleasantries, handshakes, and a Galway win.
You know what? Like after Garry said a draw, I was thinking a draw. But after Ben saying Galway, I'm gonna spice it up a bit and say Kilkenny. Just think the youngsters.
Oh.
So do you actually think that, or are you just saying it to we predicted everything?
You know what? I was just gonna say it. Like it could go either way. Like it's such a difficult one to call. No, but just look at Kilkenny's forward line. You look at Owen Cody, you look at Martin Keown, who didn't actually start the last day, TJ Reid, John Donnelly, Adrian Bullen, and you've Darragh Harker, the midfield, who did well the last day against Westmeath. I just think Kilkenny have too much firepower for Galway in this game and could easily win this game by, I'd say, about 3 points maybe. A goal could do it in this game, a goal from Martin Keown. So we'll see if Kilkenny do the trick. But before we end the podcast, lads, where could we find the Wexford Hurling Podcast on social media or indeed any podcast platform?
Yeah, we're on them all. Apple and Spotify. Just put in the Hurling Podcast for all your the Wexford Hurling Podcast for all your Wexford Hurling goods.
We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're not on TikTok.
Yes.
Not on TikTok yet. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're not modern enough. We're not young enough for TikTok.
For geez, Simon Harris started a TikTok account, so you're never too old. Never too old. So you get started. You get started away anytime, lads. And pleasure to have you on the podcast. And thanks for coming on today. And best luck with Wexford for the rest of the season. And enjoy the games this weekend.
Sure, man. We'll see you in Cork Park for the All Ireland final with Wexford and Cork.
Exactly. Looking forward to it.
Right.
Thanks, Patrick.